It's either you leave, you make the decision and you leave, or they increase that fear-mongering game of creating all of what we are seeing right now.
That's Yanira Arias, National Campaigns Manager for Alianza Americas, a network of organizations led by migrants from Latin America and the Caribbean. Amid a wave of cancellations of temporary protected status, she says Venezuelan, Haitian, and Honduran former TPS recipients are being detained and deported in violent immigration operations on U.S. streets. I'm your host, Roman Gressier. This week, Salvadoran TPS recipients hold their breath for a last-second renewal. Nicaragua sells off exiles' properties and suspends lawyers. And Juan Orlando Hernández plans his return to Honduras after a pardon from Donald Trump. From the studios of El Faro English, this is Central America in Minutes.
In Nicaragua, the house arrest of Daniel Ortega's brother
relates more to El Salvador and Honduras than to Guatemala. In the case of Guatemala,
they say globalism comes to die at CIPA, but in El Salvador, it's already dead.
Central America in Minutes, an original podcast by El Faro English.
TPS holders from El Salvador are living in a legal limbo, waiting for an answer on their protection from deportation. The Trump administration has moved against the decades-old federal program and stripped away protections from multiple countries in the last year. Nicaraguans and Hondurans, some of the oldest TPS populations in the U.S., were among those terminated earlier this year, despite ongoing litigation that has drawn death threats against a federal judge. In June, the Supreme Court gave Trump a green light to end the program in the case of Haiti, Syria, and a group of other countries. Yet work authorization is scheduled to end months earlier, on July 22nd. This has caused a chain of uncertainties for the beneficiaries of the program. What can they do and when? On Thursday, July 16th, President Donald Trump welcomed Salvadoran President Nayib Bukele to the White House. Bukele had just cemented his candidacy for a third presidential term after scrapping term limits. El Salvador is now one of the last 4 countries whose TPS hasn't been terminated. TPS was created in 1990 to give the right to legally stay and work in the U.S. to migrants from countries facing war, environmental disaster, epidemics, and other catastrophes. When TPS is canceled, holders revert to undocumented status. The Department of Homeland Security is legally supposed to announce its decision to extend or not 60 days before it expires. That should have been on July 11th. That window exists for a reason, to give people, employers, and local governments time to prepare for the possibility of return. Arias calls the lack of announcement a well-prepared strategy to make life miserable for immigrants, even those following the rules. Now to Nicaragua. Over the past 2 weeks, the Ortega Murillo regime has intensified persecution by selling off the properties of exiles and secretly suspending an estimated 2,000 Nicaraguan lawyers, according to press reports by Confidencial and La Prensa. Photojournalist Oswaldo Rivas went into exile in the U.S. after covering the country's mass protests in 2018. In June, he told newspaper El País that his home was being offered for sale through a listing on a real estate website. Nicaraguan political analyst Oscar René Vargas, who lives in exile in Costa Rica, also confirmed that his residence was turned into a restaurant in 2023. According to the UN Group of Human Rights Experts on Nicaragua, since 2018, the regime has established a pattern of confiscating homes, vehicles, land, bank accounts, businesses, and pensions from people in exile. The press has been a primary target. Buildings belonging to outlets like Confidencial and 100% Noticias have been seized since 2019 and transferred to the Ministry of Health. The facilities of the historic newspaper La Prensa, confiscated in 2021, were converted into a state-run quote-unquote cultural center. The Observatory for Transparency and Anti-Corruption found that by 2024, the regime had confiscated 135 properties owned by universities, NGOs, media outlets, and dissidents, worth a staggering sum of $250 million. In early July, the regime's Supreme Court of Justice revoked the licenses of hundreds of lawyers and notaries not affiliated with the ruling party, including those in exile and even former Sandinista sympathizers. The UN group of experts gathered testimonies from lawyers who'd been suspended. Most of them found out when they entered a courtroom or typed their names into the digital registry and found they were no longer in the system. The Supreme Court has not made any official announcements regarding the criteria for revoking credentials or confirmed the number affected. The UN group said the decision undermines the rule of law and leaves the population without the right to defense. There's recent precedent for this. In 2023, the Supreme Court suspended the licenses of lawyers, further ties to the defense of political prisoners, civil society organizations, and regime critics. Under Joe Biden's administration, 15 lawyers who were suspended that year were also stripped of their citizenship and flown to the United States. Like others banished from Nicaragua, they're now receiving little help from any country.
We've received a number of messages and calls from people telling us that they want to be able to go to Palmarola Airport to receive him and see him.
Daniela Hernández, the daughter of former Honduran President Juan Orlando Hernández, announced that her father is expected to return to Honduras on Sunday, July 26th. She said the public is invited to a gathering in the capital, Tegucigalpa, to thank God for what she described as the miracle of his release from federal prison in New York. Former President Hernández was released from a 45-year prison sentence after Trump announced an official pardon last November, just days before the Honduran elections. But Hernández still faces criminal accusations in Honduras. Prosecutors allege he was involved in fraud and money laundering in a case called Pandora 2. Those charges have prevented his immediate return despite his release in the U.S. On June 26th, a Honduran judge provisionally suspended the arrest warrant, ruling he has the right to appear before the court and respond to the allegations. Hernández has sought the complete withdrawal of the international arrest warrant and the Interpol red notice before returning to Honduras, but instead he obtained only a temporary suspension of the domestic arrest warrant. Hernández, who like President Tito Asfura is from the Trump-aligned National Party, is scheduled to appear before a judge in the Pandora 2 case on August 3rd. The judge could allow Hernández to remain free while proceedings continue. In late June, the Honduran news outlet Criterio also reported that despite multiple complaints and the freezing of assets, no additional criminal charges are currently pending against the former president. Despite his conviction to 45 years in prison on drug charges, Hernández has argued that the presidential pardon from Trump proved his innocence all along. More recently, a satirical account on X posted a video claiming to show a march in support of Hernández's return. But according to newspaper El Heraldo, it was actually recorded in 2019, when U.S. prosecutors charged his brother, Tony Hernández, with drug trafficking. Thanks for listening today. This episode of Central American Minutes was written by Megan Mandrachio, Lirian Colon Santiago, and Gabriel Labrador. Editing by me, Roman Gressier, and sound design by Amyan. For more journalism translating Central America, subscribe to our newsletter at elfaro, that's elfaro.net/en. Hasta pronto.